the meeting for the Scott County Board of Adjustments, November 4th meeting. I'll need a motion to approve the October 7th meeting minutes.
I'll make the motion to approve the October 7th, 2021 minutes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor to approve the minutes, say aye. Aye. The October 7th Board of Adjustment meeting minutes have been approved. Charlie, would you like to swear in those that plan to speak?
Yes, ma'am. Everybody signed in to speak. If you could stand, raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the statement you're about to make to be the truth to the best of your information and belief? Yes, sir. Thank you all.
All right, our first order of business is an old application, S 2021-19 for Four Seasons All Outdoors conditional use permit. Elise, are you ready?
I'll save the legwork for you, and you can have the easy part. Thank you. As was stated, this is S-2021-19, which is a conditional use permit for home occupation to operate a landscaping business out of the project site, which is 743 Lyle Road. The project site is zoned A1 agricultural and has 27.383 acres. Access to the site is through Lyle Road, and staff does recommend approval of the conditional use application. This is an aerial shot of the site as available. This is before any of the development was going on it. This is, as you can see, to the west is the railroad tracks, and to the east is 75. Maybe I get that backwards, I'm right. So the application is for a conditional use permit for the home occupation. There's no previous applications or approvals for the site. However, there are previous applications at the site and by this applicant at a different site for a similar type venue, just operating landscape businesses out of agricultural land. Okay, thank you. That makes sense there. So the home occupations are governed by the zoning ordinance, saying that if you have it, you can. If you have it as a conditional use, it can be something that can be operated. And currently, the applicant has an operation with a conditional use permit at his previous location of 1823 Oxford Road. The site that we will be at is instead on a new location further outside of the city on Lyle Road. This is the Royal Spring Aquifer. The site is kind of right in the middle of it. For those who do not know, the Royal Spring Aquifer is a major water supplier to Lexington, Georgetown, and southern Scott County. And so it is in the best interest of the board and of any developments on there that if you do operate within that kind of catch basin area, you are doing so in a reasonable manner. The applicant intends to, with his business, operate from 8 a.m. to about 5 to 6 p.m. with employees entering around 8 a.m., leaving for off-site projects, returning as required, and then returning at the end of day around 5 to 6 p.m., with occasional work being on the weekends. However, most of the work will be concentrated to the weekdays. Previous locations had issues with burning of materials and other business practices, but this project site isn't really near urban residential neighborhoods like the previous location is, so it would be at least less noted than the subdivisions that we're experiencing in having that burning happening periodically. Staff recommends that any storage of materials, vehicles, or machinery associated with home occupation should be at least 50 feet from all property lines or inside of a building. This would just ensure that everything is being maintained well, and it would kind of keep out of people's sight lines. The important thing to consider with this project is that it does have if I can get this to work. This is the development plan that currently is queued up to be heard at the Planning Commission meeting on this coming Thursday. So not this Thursday, but next. The applicant is looking to develop the land in order to have a residence while also having the business in the front. Currently, I believe the residence is not fully constructed or occupiable. However, front areas are developed to a certain point. As you can see, it's a pretty big amount of space in between the business and kind of the residences in the back end. This is just a zoomed in sight of the development plan submitted by the applicant to the Planning Commission. This is just a reference. This is not meant to be something that would influence the board's opinions, just rather when referencing business activities, this is kind of what the site would be looking like, with mulch storage, employee parking, 2 buildings, fuel storage, dumpster management, and various other machinery required for business operations. Going back to the conversation about the Royal Spring Aquifer, the project site is within the recharge area and is required to go to the Wellhead Protection Committee meeting. It is a hearing scheduled for Monday, so this would be kind of, any recommendations from this would be rolled in with the recommendations from the Wellhead Committee and then would be taken onward and upwards through the development process. It's just important to consider that this is kind of in a grander scheme series of things. Staff has determined that these are the activities and items that are related to business activities that are kind of points of topic that would be discussed by the Wellhead Committee: storage of fuel tanks, mulch bins, fertilizer and other chemical type situations, batteries and a septic tank on site. And then these are the precautions that the applicant has stated as things that he would be kind of managing. Again, this isn't meant to influence the board decision, just saying that this is practices that would be likely to undertaken on the project site should it be done so. Staff does find that the application is within that Royal Springs aquifer and precautions would be needed to protect water supply. Furthermore, the operations would be during traditional business hours with limited work on the weekends as required. And as proposed, the layout of the business would have a lower impact on the neighboring property owners. This is a very large site with a very kind of concentrated area that business operations would be going on within and not really extending towards the railroad, and sounds and noise would not be atypical to that is experienced with I-75 to the kind of southeast of the property. Certain activities may negatively impact property owners surrounding, so having machines warming up in the morning, doing any type of repairs, odors, big projects, moving equipment in and out, maybe possibly increased traffic by slower vehicles due to used in business operations may be found. However, it would not be incredibly adverse to the area. Again, this is an agricultural area with a lot of working farms, so it would just kind of relate to the existing uses in the area and what is typical of the A1 district. Currently, there's no residence on the project site. The applicant would need to have an occupied residence on the project site before any materials and commercial use could take place on the project site. This is just typical expectations of a home occupation permit. Usually with a home occupation, you're expecting that the owner is living on the site and then operating the business either out of a garage or, in this case, two built structures in the kind of front of the property facing Lyle Road. Staff does recommend approval of the home occupation with 8 conditions of approval. The first 4 are those typical conditional use permits, such as complying with all zoning and subdivision regulations, complying with state, federal, and local regulations, returning to the Board of Adjustment prior to any changes in the approved conditions, and the conditional use permit would become null and void upon sale and transfer of the project site. There are 4 kind of individually specific ones that are being recommended to be included with the condition of approval, such as having or preventing the applicant from operating a junkyard or some type of outdoor storage of inoperable vehicles, collecting over a period of time, and really kind of creating an unsightly and at times problematic arrangement. Additionally, materials, vehicles, and machinery must be kept from all property lines or inside of a building. There's just, again, is trying to mitigate the impacts that would be felt upon neighboring residents and others in the area. A preliminary and final development plan is currently, or a preliminary development plan is currently under review by the Planning Commission staff and will be reviewed by the Planning Commission on Thursday as part of their regularly scheduled session. So that's kind of something that's already in the works. And the applicant shall comply with all conditions outlined by the Wellhead Protection Committee and the Planning Commission. That is all I have.
couldn't understand what she was reading. I was like, what? All right, is the applicant here? Would you like to address the board, please? And use your words, what you're going to do.
I'm sorry?
And just let us know what you're going to do.
Okay, my name's
Explain it.
Corky Withrow. I presently have this same business at 1829 Oxford Drive, which is over on the other side of Cherry Blossom across from Toyota. They give me that conditional use permit, or you guys did probably 5-6 years ago. Part of the reason for me moving my business from that location to this one is David Lusby has talked to me recently that the road is going through my property, so I have to move. So part of the reason for me moving and having this business relocated is because he has told me that I'm going to have to move out. So that's kind of, I'm trying to be proactive with that. So that's kind of why I'm seeking this conditional use permit.
No. Any questions?
Is it gonna be the same business, or you
It's
making
the
major
same
changes? Just the same?
It's the same business.
Janet, you have a question? All right, thank you.
Okay.
Do we have neighbors who want to voice concern?
Have to drop it here.
My name is Billy Covington. I live at 717 Lyle Road. It's just north of Corky's place, and I have no problem, with Corky's business or a home. Only concern I got is we got kind of a hollow, comes down through me and through Corky, and it needs to be a cupboard put in there, because, I've seen the water really gets rough in there at times. It hadn't been for the last couple of years, but I've seen it really bad. And that's the only concern I've got is that cupboard and that road down there. And I mentioned to Corky before, so he's aware of it, but I just want to make sure that, I know you hadn't seen it, Corky, but I have seen gobs of water come down off it. Since they built a new school in the subdivision up there, it has sent water down across my place, and on across Corky's and on down to Cane Run, and that needs to be, that road needs to have a cover under it to keep it open. That's my only concern.
All right, thank you.
Now, is that something that will be addressed in that meeting?
Yeah, that would be something that would be addressed in the design stages. We would take it into consideration in the final development plan.
Is there anyone else who wants to speak regarding this item? Do you have questions, discussion?
Have you had any other questions or concerns at the office from neighbors?
No, I haven't really heard anything upcoming. So yeah, I'd say that it's pretty well received, if anything.
Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve application S 2021-19 for conditional use permit, home occupation at 743 Lyle Road, Corky Withrow, subject to all staff recommendations.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, Janet?
Janet or
Did you second?
Rachel, they both said
They
it.
both tied.
Oh, that's why it sounded odd. I
Yeah.
heard echoes, okay.
Stereo.
All those approval of 2021-19, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, we approve 2021-19 for the conditions that we discussed.
And what we were saying was the culvert will be taken up in the other meeting for the
All right.
wellhead.
Thank you all. We'll move on to new applications.
Gonna save everybody.
2021-41.
All right, thank you. I'll give them.
All right.
Now that they're through with their discussion, you can go ahead.
That was very official, Madam
Is
Chairman.
that going to be in the minutes? Put it in the minutes.
Very official.
Not on the minute.
As the chairman said, this is S-2021-41, a conditional use permit application for a private and public park and recreation area on parcels 27-00-01, 02, and 03, with a total acreage of approximately 62.78 total acres across the 3 parcels. This land is zone A1 agricultural, and this would be a conditional use, obviously, within that district. Staff does recommend approval of this application. This is an aerial shot of the site. You can see it's all frontage off of Porter Road, with the property, the number 3 is how I've been referencing them. The number 3 property is addressed 877. The other 2 are unaddressed and undeveloped pieces of property. There are no previous Board of Adjustment applications for this property, and the applicant is seeking to construct 5 cabins with the pavilion and other amenities available on the site for reservation purposes and retreat. The applicant proposes these 5 sites on these orange marked kind of little house-shaped icons on the property, with a pavilion noted in red and separate bathrooms noted in purple. I may have mixed up the colors, but it illustrates that these are the general locations of where the restrooms would be and where the pavilion would be. Each cabin would be able to sleep about 5 to 6 individuals, and the pavilion would be able to sleep about 8. So a total amount of 38 individuals at the maximum would be expected on the site at any given point. Restrooms are separated by gender, so there will be a women and a children's restroom and a men's restroom. Parking is noted in green, so that is available for people to kind of come in and park your vehicles in and then go throughout the site to your little site or your pavilion or wherever kind of amenities you're looking to utilize. And then noted in blue would be a pool addition on the current residential site that would be available for guest use. As I said before, these reservations are available, these sites are available by reservation, so it would be a private access, but once you're kind of within, you have kind of free reign, to my understanding of the parcels, to kind of utilize it to, I don't know, enjoy nature and kind of enjoy rural character of northern Scott County. This is the proposed appearance or aesthetic that would be affiliated with each glamp site. Again, these are just kind of the breakdown and the logistics of each cabin site, the pavilion, and then just the general site as a whole. Just a kind of quick comment on the little cabin sites. They are they do not have restrooms in them, nor do they have kitchens, so they are kind of a weird hybrid dwelling type situation where there is sleeping rooms, but there aren't really amenities that would really make it like a home or a residence, so it's treated a little bit differently. The pavilion would have a full kitchen and bath available within it, though, so that one would be kind of treated more like a dwelling type situation, although it would still be there for business purposes. It is just kind of a slight difference between the two. On the site, there is water, electricity, and Wi-Fi available. Currently, at least at the residence, it would likely be that water and electricity and all those utilities would need to be extended through the site in order to suit the demands of the pavilion and the cabin sites and any other additional lighting or amenities needed on the site. And it is important to note that this is not in any metropolitan sewer service area, so these would be on a septic tank, which is a little bit different to the current situation, which is going on midway in the RV park, where they were going to have to be going through Woodford County's I believe it's Woodford County, right? Thank you. It's Woodford County sewer system, or pumping through that, or pumping parts to Scott County. That kind of conversation really wouldn't be going on here as much, because it would be focused more on a septic management system. Septic would need to likely be expanded on the site. However, that would just be a conversation that would be had at a later point with GMWSS and other kind of providers that are more specialists in that one. These are the general operations that would be kind of going on the site, just to kind of get a general idea of when you would be expecting to hear individuals with live music, or just having noise or something like that, or people coming and going. These are kind of the expected hours. There would be an office available on site, open 8 to 5 on Monday through Saturday, and 9 to 1 on Sundays. There'd be food provided on the site during the weekdays. A pool would be available on site for individuals interested in something like that. A moving showing is proposed for around 9 p.m. and then there's a pavilion with games that would be open from sunrise to about 10 p.m. on Monday through Sunday. There's expected to be 2 individuals on staff at this time. I would anticipate if the site gains more notoriety, it would probably increase, but at this time they're just projecting 2 people on site. And then there would be guest-specific codes for gates and access only available for active reservations in order to kind of make this site as secure as possible. So kind of returning to this is a unique situation because it is like a cabin for rent type thing. Most of the time people have just a single family residence that they would just have family come in and out of, and as instead these are kind of like rentals and something like that. So it would kind of have a change with the, it wouldn't really negatively impact the rural aspect of the area just because it's back area, but it would kind of impact the traffic through the area if it became very popular. There was a high season where there were very often events going on. Porter Road does have access to 275, so it is in a county road that is at least in better shape in certain portions than most other county roads. So while it would be trying to find the word, if it had to be on a county road, like this is probably the best bet, at least in staff opinion, as opposed to a much smaller road that is much more pulled away from interstate influences. There would need to be some kind of conversation about lighting and sound and generation and otherwise. Staff does consider or recommends considering an addition of a condition that would require some type of time restriction, so after a certain time you're not making loud noises or having lights or something like that. But given the site that it can kind of naturally kind of mute and dull like the lighting, however, if area concern bring it up, we can obviously address that when that comes. These are the findings slide. I kind of just use this as a holding slide. So the proposed fit, staff does believe would fit the rural character of the area. The addition of the sites are pretty small and they would be kind of contained and tucked into the area, and it wouldn't really be like on road frontage that would be disrupting the layout of homes, or as you're driving through, you're not just all of a sudden seeing this kind of resort. You're seeing maybe a driveway or a gate, and then the resort is in the back end, so it has a little bit more privacy, and it isn't really as interruptive as like the RV resort or some other type of major resorts that they have a bunch of big signage and big pylons and big features. So at least as proposed right now, it does not anticipate that it would, or at least staff does not anticipate that it would really impact the rural character. There would be people on site that would be managing the site, making sure that it would be maintained in operations for specifically listed times up there. And the approval of the conditional use permit could adversely impact the public health, safety, or welfare, just increase drivers on the road. If the septic tank, something happens with that, or general conditions that could impact it, I believe that those would need to be addressed at some point with like a design prospect or a design decision. But it is important to consider that this conditional use permit does kind of have some drawbacks, we'll call it, even though drawback isn't really the best way to call it. The public and private park and recreation would increase the amount of noise and odors possibly, as well as light flashes that could be a nuisance. Again, given the rural character, I feel like staff believes that it would be reduced due to just the rolling hills and the existing vegetation. However, it's just something to consider that it would increase it, at least in some way or form. Given that, the staff does recommend approval of the conditional use permit subject to 7 conditions. I believe actually there might be 8, just including the time restriction or operating time restrictions. The first 4, again, are the traditional ones that you see with conditional use permits, such as adhering to zoning and subdivision regulations, adhering to requirements by state, federal, and local entities, operating in accordance with those regulations and otherwise. The conditional use permit would become null and void in the sale or transfer, and the applicant shall return to the board with any changes in the approved conditions. So if a major increase in the amount of sites were available or some major construction would be added, it would need to kind of be returned, or if this became a venue location, this would need to return for either a venue or a special event permit or some type of other permit that would be added on top of this existing one. I forgot there are actually 9. We'll go through those ones. The development plan is the 5th condition of approval, just making sure that the homes and everything is done in a proper manner. So this would be turned into the planning staff, that would be then turned over to the planning commission for review and public hearing. And then it would be kind of presented, and we would work through that process with that side of things. The applicant shall register the venue with the Georgetown-Scott County Revenue and Tourism Commissions due to just general interest of being involved and making sure that people are up to date and everything like that. Buildings must have approval by the building and permitting office as well as the fire marshal prior to construction. That would be covered as part of the development plan, but I just wanted to explicitly say that any homes, anything like that, would need to make sure that they are meeting our very specific standards for safety and welfare in the area. The condition 8, which is one that is not included on the staff report, is just operating hours. So just making sure that if you're generating a lot of noise, you're kind of limiting it to reasonable hours. And condition 9 was a conversation that we had with the health department, just saying that if this does go through, septic and food operations must have approval from the health departments. Due to just distribution of food, at some point it crosses the line from just a bed and breakfast to possibly a restaurant qualification. So it would need proper approvals from either entity in order to kind of properly provide what would be intended or as part of that. But that's more of a conversation that we'll be having at a later point with the applicant and the development plan. That's all I have. Does the board have any questions or?
This looks like the campsites are about 1,500 feet off the road. Is that about right?
I would say so. It's the back end property is about 67 acres, so it would be a fair bit back beyond where the existing home is, and then.
And the lots up front, those are owned by the same folks?
Yes, that is correct.
Where would this 32-foot movie screen be?
I am unsure at this time. I would assume by the pavilion, but I believe the applicant is here, so
Okay.
we can request kind of further information on that one.
All right,
at
thank
that
you.
time.
Because that would show.
And if the applicant would come up and speak to us, please? Hello.
Hello, my name is, can I take this?
Yeah.
Kashida Salyers, addressing 877 Porter Road.
Okay.
Your question with the pool, it's kind of like be around the pool area, but not close to the pool. It's like you have a leisure of, you can watch the big screen while you're laying in the pool, like a drive-in movie.
Would it be like projecting back towards where the glamping cabins are at, or toward the other properties, or which way would it be oriented?
It would be more, not towards where the cabins, but just towards where your recreation would be.
Okay. So over this area probably.
Well, this is the pool, so she's saying you can.
I'm thinking here, it shows back that way, not that way. It could be back over here, probably here. Okay.
Do you have questions
Not yet.
of her?
Charlie, do you have any concerns on this?
Not really. I'm just wondering about the distance back. Obviously, I don't think you'd want something like that near the road, but it's not near the road.
No, everything, would be pushed
The
back.
parking even is, at least now that she's confirmed that, yes, she's owns those first 2 properties, even the parking is a long way from the road.
Yes.
So, I mean, that looks like well, I'm not sure, but it looks like the distance chart on another drawing looks like that could even be close to 800-900 feet from the road. So I don't think that's a problem. I can't imagine there'll be enough people. I mean, it's not a great road, but it's these few cars. I don't think they're going to make that much of a difference. If I can ride on a bicycle, it's probably going to be all right.
That's why I was asking about the movie screen, because I'm just thinking 32 foot is a rather tall projection of light, you know?
Yeah,
That's why I was asking the orientation of where
Yeah.
that would be going.
This area goes up and down quite a bit. Is the screen gonna be up kind of like on road level, or is it gonna start down?
It's down.
It's,
It's
I
down.
figured
Yes,
it
it's
almost
down.
have to be down. 'Cause
Yes.
It drops pretty quick, I think.
Yes, sir.
If I'm remembering right.
Yes.
So that would contain a lot of it right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Do we have anyone, neighbors or anyone who wants to discuss concerns with this? Did you have any complaints from neighbors, Elise, or concerns? Sorry.
It's okay. No, I'm expecting to get up and down. It was, you weren't here last time, but it was a very constant, very
Okay.
constant.
You
And
were-
when you don't ask, she gets up anyway.
It's easier for Jay and everyone. We did have a couple comments just as it related to Midway, making sure that it wasn't on the sewer system or wouldn't be like taking it really, taking sewer or anything kind of really far away and driving it into the city. But due to just the location, it being outside of the GMWSS service area, we determined that that while it is an important concern, it isn't one that would be kind of relevant to this. There were additional questions about whether or not RVs would be permitted on the site. With conversations with the applicant, I believe that there would not be. I believe, at least right now, the planner conversations weren't really showing like where they would hook up or anything like that. So I believe that that would not be something that would be present.
So, I mean, I can see the map, but how close is the nearest neighbor to this?
I'm not sure if the,
I see 831, but
Yeah.
of course, by the topical map, I can't.
Is that the house right there?
Yes.
yeah, you might, the better reference might be the notification parcels, but 831 is probably the closest. There are maybe a couple houses across the street, but there's a fairly decent amount of wooded area directly across, so it would be a fair bit west or east.
Okay.
So, I mean, discussion on placement if it's getting too close to homes would obviously occur, and building, permitting, and other people would have to make sure that it would be an appropriate distance from the road, but also not too far from the road to where like safety services couldn't get out there in a reasonable amount of time or with relative ease at any point. So that would be kind of something discussed at that point.
All right. Do you have any questions or discussion?
Looks pretty cool. Do what?
I already asked him. Yes or no? I asked if there was anybody who had
Oh,
any
yeah.
questions. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve application S 2021-41 conditional use permit for public and private park and recreational area, subject to the 9 conditions that staff recommended.
If we could, I mean, that's perfectly adequate, but if we could, subject to the entire staff report, because there are also, you know, factual matters in there that would go into the decision. So if we could just make it subject to the whole report, that would include the conditions.
Okay, yeah, I move we approve the application subject to the entire staff report.
Thank you.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All those in
Who?
favor? Oh, Sonia. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
S 2021-41 has been approved, and staff will be in contact with you. Thank you.
Reserve us a cabin. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all want to come, so let us know. Reserve us a cabin. Board of
Elise,
Adjustment
what
party.
happened to Linder under the old applications?
He was unable to finalize the sale before today.
Oh, okay, so he's,
He will be pushed back into December, and then by then.
okay, good, thank you.
Did I skip one?
The one we.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
to go. I'll send you a follow-up letter, just kind of say what the conditions were, and then if you guys have any questions, we can kind of go through it at that time. Perfect. Thank you.
All right, we move on to S 2021-43. Thank you, Elise.
Of course. This is a conditional use permit, kind of more typical of what we see on a day-to-day basis in the county board. This is a conditional use permit for a secondary dwelling at 631 Locust Fork Road. The land is zoned agricultural, surrounded by other agricultural properties, and the land acreage is 13 acres. staff does recommend approval of the conditional use permit. This is an aerial shot of the site. It is addressed under stamping ground, so it is kind of the northern west part of the county. Locust Fork is bisecting, or not bisecting, but is going through the front of the property. Directly where 63 is at is where the current home is. The brown barn is the barn, and then it's very convenient. The green pin is roughly where the home would be placed.
Oh,
So
okay.
it works out very well. Obviously, it would be subject to moving around depending upon terrain or something like that, but just for reference right off the bat, this is what the site is looking like here. Secondary single-family residences in the same lot are conditional use in the A1 district. The project site does have enough acreage to satisfy the density requirement of one home for every 5 acres of property. They would not be eligible, obviously, for another home due to you can't have 2 secondary dwellings. That becomes a tertiary dwelling, and that exceeds the terminology, as well as it would be unable to have the density requirements maintained. So this would be eligible, just to entirely clarify. The dwelling must comply with existing A1 district setback and zoning requirements, so maintaining 50 feet from all property lines, and staff does recommend that there be at least 100 feet between existing and proposed residences on the project site, just to ensure that if the property ends up being subdivided at a later date, they can be subdivided and both homes would be up to standards with the zoning setback requirements. Given that it's much further back on the property, this would not be really a point of issue. However, if the home needs to be pushed forward for whatever reason, staff does highly recommend, if not require, that the homes be at least 100 feet apart.
Alrighty.
This is just, it would not adversely impact the public health, safety, or welfare of the surrounding residents. This area is pretty spread out and is more agriculturally focused, so everyone is on larger lots. The home is very far in the front. The existing one is very far in the front, and then the proposed one would be further in the back, so it wouldn't be altering the density, making it look like there's more going on than there really is, and it would fit the character. I didn't include an image of what the facade of the home would look like, but it fits very much so at least in my opinion, the style of homes and residences, that farm style, that would be typical of the area. Yeah. Given that, staff does recommend approval of the application for the conditional use permit, subject to the 6 conditions above. Again, the first 4 are the ones typical of a conditional use permit, so I'll start with the 5th one because you've already heard it. The applicant shall build the home at least 100 feet from the current residence to eliminate need for variance should the property be subdivided, and the applicant shall acquire an address of the dwelling free of charge from the Georgetown-Scott County Planning Commission's GIS department. If you just come into our office and give us a call, they can arrange it and get that all situated. So with that, I will open the floor if you guys have any further questions for me or otherwise.
Thank you. Is the applicant present? Would you like to come talk to
I
us?
don't have much to add, but if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
No, I don't have any.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Do we have any issues, neighbors, concerns? Are there any neighbors here? Thank you.
I'm not gonna go all the way up from 100.
Yeah, just shake your head. Just say no.
No, I haven't heard anything so far.
Okay, thank you. I'll entertain a motion for 21-43.
You're in agreement with everything, Charlie?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'll make the motion that we approve application number S-2021-43 for conditional use permit for a single-family residence, subject to the 6 conditions of approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
S 2021-43 is approved, and staff will be in touch with you.
Did you say staff report with the conditions or just the conditions?
Staff
You
report.
don't.
Well, I thought so, but I was writing and
I'll
I,
send it tomorrow.
You know what?
I'll send it tomorrow, and then
Very
if you
good.
wanted to go.
That's what I wrote.
In the afternoon, I suppose you could, I don't know.
Just give us
you
the
wanna
little
do.
card you want us to read.
Yeah,
Of course.
Give us cue cards.
Little flashcard.
That's right.
thank you. All right, we're ready for 2021-44.
I hope we are.
Yeah.
This is a variance to reduce the side setback from 25 feet to 22 feet for a 720 square foot detached storage building on the property addressed 125 Lighthouse Way. The property is zoned A1 agricultural and has an acreage of 2.56 acres. And staff does recommend approval. This one is less formal than usual, 'cause it's not capitalized, but that's okay. This is a site aerial of what's going on. This is a much more narrow lot in the back end, a little bit wider in the front end. It is important just to consider that while this is A1 agricultural, this is a smaller than agricultural lot because it's part of a subdivision. So this is the development in Fisher's Landing, or Fisher's Mill Landing. This is one of their cluster lots, and so it is noted in the star there. It has a different build line setback requirement than typical of the A1 district due to the length of the site. So there's an 100-foot build line or setback for the rear property line as opposed to the 50-foot, and then the side yards are 25 feet and not 50. So this just allows for homes to be built there and not really be as restricted. It was built in as part of the development plan and when it was platted in 1999. For variances, we are guided by KRS 100.243, findings necessary for granting variances. I'll let you guys kind of read the top if you really want to, but the three things that the staff is interested in is whether or not the variance exists from special conditions that do not traditionally apply to land in the vicinity or same zone. Strict applications of the provisions of regulation would deprive applicant of reasonable use of land or create unnecessary hardship. And the circumstances are a result of the application of actions taken by the applicant subsequent to the adoption of zoning regulations, and then deny if we find these things. So, given this, staff does believe that this was a much more narrow lot, so kind of any variance would likely be needed. Obviously, there wasn't one applied as when the cluster lots were created. It is much more narrow, obviously, than most of the other ones, and this is a very minor adjustment to even the side yard setback. So instead of being 25 feet, they're just requesting 22 feet in order to allow for the structure that they're putting in, shown on kind of the building planned on the left, I believe. So the location would be in line with the home, it would not be behind it. After looking at all the homes surrounding, there are very few things in kind of the back end of the house. Most things kind of have that same front facade, so putting something in the back end could alter the character, it could kind of make the home kind of stick out a little bit. I mean, I don't know who's looking in people's backyards and really thinking about it, but HOAs are a thing, so I would suspect maybe something would be aesthetic or I don't know. Anyway, so based off of just the minorness of the shift from 25 feet to 22 feet and it really not altering the character or the shape of the lot not being as a result of the applicant, these are kind of our findings. We believe that the approval of the variance would not adversely impact the public health, safety, or welfare. Approval of the variance would not alter the character of the general vicinity, and it does, as a result, meet the findings of KRS 100.
I assume they we can ask that.
Given this, staff does recommend approval of the variance
They need to know, so-
for the side yard setback reduction, given the following three conditions of approval. First of which is that they would be subject to all other zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations. They shall comply with other regulatory entities and shall provide permit requirements as requested, and they shall obtain a build permit from the building inspection office prior to any construction going on the site.
All right, do y'all have any questions of?
Yes, ma'am, I do. Is there an HOA involved in that area? Would they have any input in this?
I could not say. I don't.
The applicant can speak.
No, there isn't an HOA.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a question. We can't change what the HOA does if there were one, but
Yeah.
we want to make sure that the applicant knows whether we approve it or not, they have to approve it also. But if you don't have one that's active, then obviously you don't worry about it.
We voted as residents not to have a HOA, so, a long time ago.
Do you all have any other questions of the applicant? Is there anything else you want to tell us or explain, or she did good enough? Good job.
No calls, comments, complaints?
No, I haven't heard anything.
Okay. No news is good news.
Ideally.
Yes. Questions, discussion? I'll entertain a motion. Oh, sorry, I didn't know you were here.
That's okay.
Sorry.
My name is John Raymer, and
John, who?
Raymer, R-A-Y, sorry.
M-E-R?
R-A-Y-M-E-R. I live at 121 Lighthouse Way, which is Lot 39. My property is directly adjacent to the Burgesses on the southwest side. So even though I'm not directly related, I've reviewed our property lines. I've recently done some construction on my property through the permitting process, so I know how tedious it is. The properties, the way they're laid out in Fisher's Mill Landing, are very spread out. I don't see any impact at all, and I just came here to support the Burgesses' request for the variance.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. That's nice.
We like positive.
Yeah. Good neighbors, good neighbors.
I'll entertain a motion on this application.
I'll move that we approve application S 2021-44, a variance to reduce the side yard setback from 25 to 22 at 125 Lighthouse Way, subject to the 3 conditions of approval from staff recommendations. Second.
Second by Rachel. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
2021-44 is approved, and she'll be in touch with you. I know, 2021-45.
I'll give you a moment there. This is,
Stop calling me.
alrighty, so this is S-2021-45, which is a variance application to reduce the side yard setback from 20 feet to 18 feet and the front yard setback from 50 feet to 35 feet. Just a thing of note, there was a previous Board of Adjustment application that moved the side yard setback from 50 feet to 20 feet, and then that still holds, and so now they're just requesting 2 additional feet as part of this construction project.
Oh, okay. I was
So-
like, how do we go from 50 to 20?
Yeah, that would be pretty substantial. They're not very close to each other on the keyboard, so I goofed it, but not really. This is in the A1 agricultural zone, and the site acreage is 10 and 10.935 acres off of Double Colbert Road. The staff does recommend approval of the application. This is an aerial site plan. You can't really see it, but there's a lot of topographical variation. I'll go to a slide that shows just the variation on it. The house is located at the spot addressed 506, and yeah. This was part of a subdivision of a parcel into 3 different tracts, all of equal size, so they all kind of have this similar topographical challenge. I mean, not entirely important in this situation, but it's just key to consider that this is just how it was created. When considering a variance, we consider the following in order to make sure that the variance is well-founded. So special circumstances that are distinct to the site, strict application, depriving applicant of reasonable use or creating unnecessary hardship, and circumstances are as a result of no action of the applicant themselves. Here is our topographical map. It's difficult to kind of exactly see the minutia of it, but you can see just all of the black spots on the screen are all the different markers of where the contours are changing. So this is a very variable site. The home and the barn that are on the site are the 2 smaller black dots here, and those are in the most flat portion of the site. Obviously, the road is also in a very flat portion of the site because it would not be feasible to put it on the back end of that property. So I don't believe the applicant made the decision to have the ground be so variable, and I think that given those those things, it's important just to, yeah, consider there. This is the proposed location of the site. It would be a smaller kind of garage-like structure for storage purposes. The home is again marked as 506, and then the barn and other kind of sheds and otherwise are also all on that kind of front, very close to the road thing. Sites in the area, although I don't show it, sites in the area are also pretty close to the road due to topographical shifts. Most of them are either on the build line or a little bit into where the build line would be. They were constructed either before or very soon after with the variance. The zoning regulations had the 50-foot setbacks for sides, front, and rear property lines. These are the findings for the site. It has pretty significant topographical challenges, making any type of construction difficult and resulting in excess cost for the applicant to get resources out to there, maintain the site. Just leveling the land would take a lot of effort. Approval of the variance would not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, and it would not alter the character of the general vicinity through its placement. And it does meet the findings of KRS 100.243 for that. Given this, staff does recommend approval of the variance subject to the 3 conditions of approval, identical to the ones previously heard with Lighthouse Way, but I'll repeat them. They're subject to zoning and subdivision development regulations. They shall comply with all other federal, state, and local regulations and shall obtain a building permit from the building inspection office prior to any home construction or any construction outright. And that is all I have.
Thank you.
Is the garage going to be in line with the house, or is it set forward?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one?
Is the garage in line with the house, or is
It
it
would
going to
be
be
a little
set
bit forward, I
Okay,
believe.
see, but, yeah, okay.
I believe the home kind of bisects the existing
around the
build
curve.
line, and so this would just be a little bit in front of that. But
The road curve.
it wouldn't be like particularly close, obviously, with the 35-foot.
Okay.
Is the applicant present?
Charlie, they got you outnumbered in here, my friend.
Not a word, Charlie, not a word.
You are outnumbered.
He gets the same thing at home, that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, I usually don't hesitate to respond, but I know my audience over here.
Oh, goodness. Just very quickly, this is 10 acres, a lot. The only flat spot on it's about the road and 35 feet over. They put the building line right through the middle of the house and angle it toward the garage. So there's no place else to build on this 10 acres, that's what it amounts to. So I'll take any questions.
I don't have any.
No, thank you. Like you said, it's about all you can do, right?
That's a bummer. I thought I had all this knowledge.
Do we have any neighbors present, or have you had calls or questions?
I didn't have anything from her.
All right.
I don't think there's any neighbors too close.
All right, thank you. Do you have questions or discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve application number S-2021-45 with the 3 staff recommendations of approval. And it's for a variance to reduce the side yard setback from 50 feet to 18 feet and front yard from 50 to 35 for a detached garage on 506 Double Culvert Road.
Second.
All those in favor, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
2021-45 is approved. And she'll be in touch with you. You too. That moves us on to 2021-46. If I'm following my paper right.
This is a unique one. This is S-2021-46, which is 2 variances. Variance in lot area required for a single-family dwelling from 5 acres to 1 acre, and a variance to reduce the setback requirements for the front yard and side yard from 50 feet to 25 feet. The parcel ID is 092-00-007, and it is zoned A1 agricultural. It is a 1 acre parcel. Staff does recommend approval for for both of them. This is the site here, to the north of it and kind of the west. Yes, north and west is Elkhorn Creek. It kind of has a bend that goes up and then around the property. This is kind of in the thumb or the kind of bottom kick-out part of Scott County in the Zion Mill area. And this is off of Weisenberger Mills, kind of going on the opposite side of the property. So this is a special condition because this is something that is obviously not seen very often, where it is a variance that would allow for some type of home construction or reasonable use of a property that would otherwise be deemed not super buildable. The zoning, section 5.4342, subsection E, lists requirements that the board must find in order for the board to grant a variance of this sort, such as the undeveloped land of record existed before July 31st, 1958. The undeveloped lot of record is too small to allow for conformance with the dimension and area regulations, and the owner has owned no adjoining land since July 31st, 1958. This is around when zoning ordinance kind of became a thing in the area, where it started to be considered in the area, and so these are just the big three that we need to satisfy and find evidence for, and staff believes that we have found appropriate evidence that would say that this property is eligible for home construction given this special condition that is going on in the site. I did a lot of research into the PVA records to see if I could find any past ownership. Unfortunately, it only goes back to 1984 with the current landowner purchasing it at that time. However, given the age of the structures around the area and looking into the Zion Mill kind of area, it's these all very smaller lots that are also zoned agricultural land. So it's consistent with the area, if not larger than some of the homes in the area that are similar zoned. So it was likely platted and then recorded, and then multiple fires that have been occurring and various records being lost over the years, it is not noted. So staff believes that given this and given the age of the area surrounding, that it was likely to be formed before the 1958 benchmark. The second point is that the underdeveloped lot is too small to allow conformance with the dimension and area regulation. The lot is 1/5 of the typical lot size for an A1 district, and the current setbacks are scaled to suit a property that is 5 acres or more. And in this instance, the 1 acre is obviously putting 50 feet from all property lines would make a pretty non-buildable property. So this is acknowledging that and saying, in light of these things, we really believe that the home is capable for something like that. And then the third condition is that the owner has owned no adjoining land since 1958. Again, I haven't found any evidence through the PVA records since they only go back to 1984. I can make a reasonable suggestion or conclusion that it is unlikely that they owned any adjoining property. If the landowner did own any adjoining property around it, it would be requested that the properties would be merged together in order to make a consideration, and then from there, taking the next appropriate steps in order to get this possibly buildable. Given that, I think that this pretty much finds that the board can make a decision to determine if this property could be buildable given its age, its size, and its age, pretty much, for that. So that's like the first half of the question. The second half is a variance question. So given the smaller size of the lot, if the board does move to deem this lot buildable or occupiable and usable, there's a variance that would obviously need to be enacted, and the applicant is requesting 35-foot setbacks from the front and side property yards in order to allow for the home to be constructed. I don't know how I got these out of order, but this is the kind of general layout of what the homes would look like. So the front white square, lighter square, is the parking and driveway area to the home, which is the square marked in green, and then the septic field in the background, which is in orange. This is outside of the realm of any service providers in our area, so it would be required that a septic tank would be in the area. And part of our stipulations of consideration to even kind of pursue this application further was, could there be a way that health department would sign off on putting a septic system on this property that would fit on the property and would allow for a residence to be put there. And based off of some conclusions, we did find that a septic field set up with tank would be available. This is the drawing provided by the surveyor, whomever made the design for it. So it is a 3-lane septic field about 50 feet from the property line on the, a little bit more of a sloped portion of the property, but still up enough to where it would not interfere, or it would be anticipated not to interfere with the Elkhorn Creek. Obviously, if there were issues with it, it would need to return or otherwise, and make sure that it would not be interfering with the livelihood of the Elkhorn Creek. But it is eligible. It is capable of having that. I got to go back in my order. I don't know how everything got messed up. This is the contour map of the project sites. This is again just an argument for permitting a building setback change from 50 feet to 35 feet. As you can tell, being a creekside location, we'll call it, it is a lot of contours over time. However, in light of this significant contour on the property, it is not lying within the floodplain. I believe all the flood kind of goes in the opposite direction, where you can see there's a lot less contours to it. So it is more likely to go off in that direction. Given that the home is able to observe the rear yard setbacks, but cannot observe the front and side yard setbacks. So these are just kind of the findings. I'll run through all 5 points here. The project site is an older, undersized lot, and the county has information on ownership going back to 1989 or 1984, and staff believes that it would be eligible for the special conditional variance because the surrounding area is dated further back. Still not 1980 or 1958, but it is dated further back, so it makes reasonable conclusion that it is pre-existing. It is undersized, however, with proper installation of a septic field, a home can be constructed on the site, is evidence there. This project site in Southern Scott County is in Southern Scott County, and as a result has pretty significant topographical variation, which would result in difficulty constructing a home, accessory structure, or driveway without a variance being allowed, and without considering that this is a smaller lot. The approval of the variance would not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, nor would it, approval of the variance it may alter the character of the general vicinity in that a home will now be there, but it will not negatively impact it. The character of the homes are all pretty close to the street line, so this would be pretty consistent, if not maybe a little bit further back than most lots in the area. I don't have any photos of those ones because it's so small I had to zoom in really far, so I couldn't really show what the existing homes would be like, and staff concludes that this application does meet the findings requirement of KRS 100.243. As a result, staff recommends approval of both the variances. This just referenced the variance, but it would be both variances for building on an undersized lot and approving of a dimensional variance to the front and side yard setbacks. Should the board approve, the 3 conditions of approval that are typical of a variance application are included on the board. So subject to all other zoning and subdivision regulations, as well as local, state, and federal regulations, and the applicant shall obtain a building permit from the building inspection office prior to construction. I do have 2 more additional ones that I forgot to put on here because I goofed it. The applicant shall return to the board prior to any changes of approved conditions. So if for some reason the septic is not eligible, or the home can't be exactly placed where it was, and it's pretty significant change, we would request that the applicant would return to the staff or the board for at least some form of review in order to make sure that everybody is still generally pretty cool with it. And then the 5th condition is that the applicant shall acquire an address for the dwelling free of cost from the Planning Commission's GIS department, since currently there is no address on the site.
Any questions for her?
If I might ask.
Yep.
I thought you said at least setback of 35 feet, the staff report says 25.
Yes, I misspoke. I caught that as I was going through, and I was like, oh.
It is 25?
It is 25 feet, yes.
Okay, good. Second question, and I didn't catch the whole comment, but something about the land records only go back to 84?
Yes.
What land records?
The ones that are maintained by the PBA downstairs. I can only find digital ones back to 84.
Because the clerk's office goes back to 18 or 17 or something, just got awful. First off, I'm not so sure it really has to go back anywhere near that far, because there's another section that says non-conformings that have been there for 10 years, we can't do anything about them anyway. So, besides, I'm sure those lots have been pretty much like they appear to be now for quite some time, so.
Yeah.
Do you all have questions of her? Is the applicant present, would like to talk to us? Hello.
Hello. So I'm John Pendry, and I think Elise did a pretty good job. But I guess the variance request was just so I would want to build just a single-family, small residence, and I would live there myself.
Okay.
So, and any questions you have, I'm more than happy to answer.
I don't have any.
Okay.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else that wants to talk in reference to it? Please come forward.
Hi, I'm Clifton Anderson, the present owner of the property, and I bought it round.
Excuse me, first name again, please?
Clifton,
Clifton?
yes.
Thank you.
And I bought the property around 1985, and it was one of a cluster of 3 homes sitting on one right beside the other. I was the northernmost one of the 3, and it was dilapidated, no door, windows were out. It eventually fell in. It was hauled away for salvage material. The other 2 homes south of this 1 acre lot had people living in them. But I guess, I don't know exactly when it happened, but within the last 15, 20 years, a farm owner came in and Tony'd up a farm right next to all this. He bought those 2 lots. And so this is the last remaining lot of the 3. So
All right.
there were 3 homes there. One that came down was a story and a half, 2 rooms upstairs, and about 4 rooms downstairs and a kitchen and bath.
All right.
So that's what you were talking about, Charlie.
Thank
There
you.
was actually a residence there prior to the last 10 years beyond that, so
Thank you.
it's already been used.
Oh, I'm
Questions?
tickled.
Discussion?
Nope.
I'll entertain a motion for 21-46.
I make a motion that we approve S 2021-46, variance of single-family dwelling from 5 acres to 1 acre, and a variance to reduce the front and side yard setbacks from 50 to 25 feet, subject to all staff recommendations.
Oh, the whole staff report.
Whole staff report.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Sonia, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
S 2021-46 is approved. Enjoy your new home. She'll be in touch with you. All right. Do we have any other items of discussion?
No.
Shirley, back in 1958, when you were riding your bicycle down that road.
You know, the funny thing is, I remember every one of those houses from riding my bicycle.
Board of
How much
Adjustment
of my life have I spent on one of those damn hard little seats?
is adjourned.